Namaskar, hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sunset TV, Bills and Insight, your one-stop destination for views, news and analysis of proposed legislations of India that have far-reaching implications and impact your life. I'm your host Kriti Mishra, and today the spotlight is on the Energy Conservation Amendment Bill 2022 passed by the Lok Sabha during the recently concluded monsoon session of Parliament. Before the detailed analysis, let's take a look at the highlights of the bill. The bill mandates the use of non-fossil sources including green hydrogen, green ammonia and ethanol for energy and feedstock. The bill empowers the central government to specify a carbon credit trading scheme. It also provides for the establishment of carbon credit markets. It brings large residential buildings under the energy conservation regime. The bill seeks to amend the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. But why did we need this amendment? Well, India made a commitment as a part of the Paris Agreement, a legally binding international treaty on climate change. India has committed, among other things, 3 quantitative targets for up to 2030. Increase installed capacity from non-fossil sources to reach 40%. Reduce the emission intensity of gross domestic product by 33 to 35% compared to 2005 levels. And creation of additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional forest and tree cover. And the amendment promotes energy efficiency and conservation and provides for the regulation of energy consumption. And for deeper understanding of these amendments, I'm joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us through virtual platform, Mr. N.K. Premchandran, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha, RSP. In the studio, we have with us Mr. Abhay Bakre, Director General, Bureau of Energy Efficiency. And we also have with us Mr. O.P. Agarwal, CEO, World Resources Institute of India. I welcome all of you on Sunset Television and thank you so much for joining us. Also in the studio, we have with us young and vibrant audience. And Mr. Premchandran, let me begin the program with you. India has planned to increase its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. In that context, take us through the importance of this bill and how well are we placed to achieve these targets?
See, the Parliament during the monsoon session has passed a very important landmark legislation by which the commitments of India in the last Glasgow conference as well as in the Paris Agreement has to be complied with, for which these amendments were carried out by the Parliament during the monsoon session. The main point which I would like to highlight is regarding not only to get the target as mentioned or as envisaged in the agreement or in the conference, Glasgow conference, but at the same time, a new concept has been introduced in the bill, that is the carbon credit trading, in which we are having certain reservation during the discussion in the Parliament. Also, I have made mention before the Honorable Minister, but unfortunately, I didn't get a satisfactory answer in respect of this carbon credit trading scheme. Such a new scheme has been introduced or incorporated in the new amendment bill. That is also a significant fact to be noted. But as far as other issues are concerned, absolutely I do agree with the contents of the bill, because energy efficiency, to achieve the energy efficiency and the conservation of energy, that is the basic objective of this act or this bill. Even the original act of 2001 as well as the amendment act is focusing on the energy efficiency, for which we have constituted an establishment, Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Its CEO is also present in the discussion. And also it is a fully, we are, because there is no doubt, there is no contradictory opinion as far as the energy efficiency and the conservation of energy is concerned. But the only question which I would like to make is that the carbon credit scheme enunciated in the bill is creating certain apprehensions. Why? Because what is meant by carbon credit scheme, that is not been explained in the bill. That was the main objection which I have made in the Parliament during the course of the debate. Why? Because Section 2 defines what is meant by carbon credit trading, that it is being Section 2, there is a provision in which it is being said that it will be explained, or it will be as per Section 14 Clause W. But what is Section 14W, which is also says that it is as per the provision the Government of India, after in consultation with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, will make a scheme. So what is the scheme? The parliament is not aware.
Mr. Bakre, as you're saying that Member of Parliament needs some clarity on carbon credit and also the new mandate that the Amendment Act provides to Bureau of Energy Efficiency.
So first of all, as initially you mentioned, there are three broad policies which are coming through these amendments. This act was enacted from March 2002 after the Honorable Parliament passed this prestigious act. It started with the late 90s or even the 80s when there were so many discussions about the fuel shock, the energy shock which happened in the globally. So, like most of the other countries, India also took this step. In 2010, this was amended. The initial act very clearly said the objective is to have the energy conservation and also energy efficiency as one of the means or the lever. So, in the world, we talk about 5 kinds of fuels. The first is, of course, coal. Second is oil. Third is gas. Fourth, we call it as renewable or nuclear. And fifth is energy efficiency. Today, even most of the countries call energy efficiency as the first fuel and not the fifth fuel, because what you consume at your end and you save it, it is actually called the first fuel because you are saving a lot of investment. Now, coming back to the amendments which are proposed here, the first one is the norms for non-fossil consumption. In the original act, there are energy consumption norms which were amended in 2010, that every designated consumers, and obviously these are the very, very large industries, they have to be given certain norms. And these norms are given in such a manner that depending on the technology, the investment, and depending on the consumption they are doing, at the end we want to save the energy for our future generation. And now, after this climate change and all the Paris Agreement and also the Glasgow climate, we also make sure that our coming generation lives in a very safe and very clean environment. So that's also another. So these are the few amendments which are there.
So Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the new mandate according to the amendment bill.
Yeah. So this new mandate is basically extended part of whatever the mandate which was given in the original 2002 Act and also the 2010. Initially, the consumption norms were only given for the energy consumption. So it was not distinguished whether it is which kind of energy. Now here, because now also we want to have the cleaner environment for our future generation, we want to make sure that some norms can also be given for a clean energy, that is a non-fossil based emission. So the fossil fuel energy emits carbon emissions or other kinds of emissions, and it is a non-fossil energy like clean energy, solar, wind, or even like biomass or nuclear, it doesn't emit any emission. So basically we are helping the environment to address the climate change. So with the extended mandate, if I may say, about the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, it can now prescribe or recommend the central government to prescribe certain norms for different consumers, especially the large consumers, to also have certain share of like 4%, 5% for any kind of green fuel which is mandated or which is basically as part of their process. It could be green hydrogen, it could be green ammonia, it could be ethanol, something like that.
For energy and for feedstock. We'll get more clarity as we move ahead in this discussion. But coming to Mr. Agarwal, it is for the first time that the government has proposed a carbon trading system. Unlike in a few other parts of the world, the so-called carbon market in India is still a developing one. Help us understand the concept of carbon trading and carbon credit.
Thanks, Kriti. Let me put it, step back a little bit first. But this whole game is about trying to reduce how much carbon we emit into the atmosphere. This has been going on for too long. Planet is warming up, and that is why all these agreements in Paris and commitments at Glasgow, all this is happening with the ultimate objective of reducing the amount of carbon dioxide we put out into the atmosphere. Now, a number of measures have been taken. Mr. Bakre and Mr. Premachandran have mentioned both of them. I won't go into that depth. But at the end of the day, there are two ways in which we can help reduce the amount of carbon coming out. One, as Mr. Bakre very rightly mentioned, reducing the amount of energy we consume for achieving a certain outcome. That is energy efficiency. With less energy, we get the same outcome. The second is we use energy which is coming from non-fossil fuel sources. That means sources that will not emit carbon into the atmosphere. Now, a lot of consumers have been using fossil fuel energy, largely coal-based electricity or gas-based electricity. For many of them, to make a change towards cleaner energy may not be immediately possible. Yet, what we want is that a total 50% of the energy must come from renewable sources or from clean sources. Now, in this kind of a phase, what would happen is some who are in a position to make that change faster and maybe go beyond the 50% would get certain credits. Credits could be in terms of certain points, they could be in terms of a certain amount of money equivalent, whatever it is. That's the scheme that is being designed by the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. But at the same time, those who are not able to make that change immediately because of certain technical reasons or because of certain financial reasons, they should be able to still meet that 50% requirement by saying, we have bought carbids from the person who has done better than what he needed to have done. So that's the kind of an exchange market that is being thought of.
Right.
I know that any new scheme, the nuts and bolts are always difficult. We've seen this in many other schemes, but the overall objective of this is very good. And I think with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency and Mr. Bakre leading that, I'm confident that they will come up with something that is really efficient, that is something that will work well in the market. But the broad principle is someone who has done better than he needed to gets certain way of, some financial benefit by someone else buying what he has not been able to achieve. That in a limited point is what I would like to respond.
All right, so the target is to achieve what we've not been able to achieve so far. Let's get in some voices from our audience here. Please go ahead. Introduce yourself and speak your mind.
A lot of people faces the problem by DEC at the state level, but after amendment 2001 act, what are the plans of government that ensure the people having those problems?
Basically, what I can understand is that with the state regulatory commissions and the central government together, how do we ensure there is a coordinated action for the benefit of the common man?
See, there are two acts in the power sector, you can say. One is the Electricity Act and another is the Energy Conservation Act. So, what you are talking about, the DEC is basically the power sector and the regulatory part of that, whereas the Energy Conservation Act and whatever the amendments subsequently proposed are basically for the consumer side. So, wherever you are having the consumption of the energy, and electricity also another form of energy apart from the oil and gas. So the Energy Conservation Act actually facilitates so many policies and in the interest of consumers, so that from the consumer point of view, how can they reduce their consumption? And whatever you are saving, it is actually the cost saving for each consumer. So this act is actually facilitating various aspects, including for the buildings, as you asked specifically for the common citizen or a common person in Delhi. So here there is a residential building we are bringing. So these guidelines, what will happen if you want to even rent a house or even you want to build a house or purchase a house, this house after coming few years will be very energy efficient. So whatever your electricity bill is there, that can be reduced by 30%, 40%. Or if you want to use air conditioners, lighting. So these are all guidelines available in this code. So a common consumer, whether he is in Delhi or even any other part of the country, he can save his electricity bill, he can even save his energy bill. Yeah.
All right, but Mr. Premchandran, I remember when this bill was discussed in Parliament, one of the issues that was perhaps flagged by members across party lines was that the compliance is an issue. Now we understand that the ambit and the scope of the Energy Conservation Building Code has been widened to include large residential complexes as well, but compliance remains a problem, sir. Would you agree?
Definitely, compliance is the most important issue to be discussed, because whether it is not because of lacking of any legislations, but because of the political willpower so as to comply the requirements as per the act and the rules. But unfortunately, it is not happening nowadays. If you can very well see that one of the essential ingredients of this amendment, if you look at, that is residential, big residential buildings are also brought within the purview of the Energy Conservation Act. Formerly, during the 2001 Act as well as 2010 amendment, the residential buildings are exempted. But now, huge residential buildings with certain criteria is also being incorporated within the purview of this act. Yes, absolutely, you are correct. Whether we are able to comply the directions, the rules and laws, unfortunately, we are not in a position to comply all these directions. As the learned friends on the other side, Mr. from Bureau of Energy Efficiency and other experts, they've already stated that because even without adapting any technology, if we can create the awareness among the people, just now we have cited a very important point, we can reduce the electricity bill. Now
Yes.
it is one of the domestic budget. If you examine the budget which is being in a big problem because of the electricity, the energy bill, it is coming to our house. So we have to create awareness among the people, especially the student community. The new generation has to be educated, bring awareness among the people regarding the energy conservation. Once it was there, but unfortunately, recently it is not getting much momentum among the public regarding regarding the energy conservation. So, energy efficiency as well as the energy conservation both should go simultaneously so as to achieve the goals which we are aiming at. Compliance of the provisions is the need of the hour. Unfortunately, now it is missing most of the places in our country.
Right, so of course we agree that execution remains the key. But beyond conservation, let's look at another aspect. Mr. Agarwal, promotion of green hydrogen as an alternative to the fossil fuels used by the industry, that could perhaps be the game changer. And hydrogen economy could have had huge dividends for us. But how do we unlock that potential?
I think green hydrogen is likely to be a revolution. It's going to be a revolution in many ways. The only challenge with green hydrogen today is that the technology and the cost of generating green hydrogen is very high. But this was the case with solar also earlier. And as volumes pick up, as technologies evolve, this is going to start coming down. The other challenge with green hydrogen is, its storage and its transportation are also technical challenges that need to be met. But at the end of the day, green hydrogen is going to be a game changer, as you very rightly said. I think a lot of effort is going into being able to produce enough green hydrogen. I think there are a lot of industries such as steel, cement, which use large amounts of coal. And the idea is, can that coal be replaced by green hydrogen?
Yes.
That will help in reducing the emissions significantly. So
Right, sir.
completely agree with you. Green hydrogen will be a game changer, but a lot of technology development still has to take place. A lot of infrastructure for that still has to come in place. We are in the right direction. The green hydrogen mission is being drafted. I think that should be coming out fairly soon. But these will be game changers in my mind.
Right, sir. Let's also take more questions from our audience here.
Our government is taking one more step towards privatization of our energy conservation. So after sometimes our private organization charge more money to more electricity bill, and so what are the steps our government is taking to ensure that a private company will not charge more money towards the common people, poor people, or rural area people? What
Right,
the
so
step
how
is
do we
taken?
ensure that the rights of consumers are protected?
See, the Energy Conservation Amendment and all the bills is basically to enable more policies to be developed and then implemented for the consumers. And these consumers are actually the citizens who are using different appliances, different forms of energy. And more and more technologies are available, more and more efficient appliances are available. So consumer gets a good choice in the market. And that's why they can save the electricity. In terms of electricity bill, again, electricity bill comes because of the higher consumption. So for the best part for any consumer is that he or she should save the energy by adopting any kind of energy conservation measures, whether it is a good appliances, LED lamps,
Right.
most of you are available. So this is one way of thing. And when there is a good competition, whether it's a private or whether it's a public, they will always offer services at a most competitive rates. So that will ensure that the consumers are not overcharged.
Right, sir. Let's take another question.
All know that our energy resources are limited, but sir, users are still growing. Sir, so what government should do to preserve energy resources?
Yeah, that's the correct point, because the Energy Conservation Act, when it came, our basic idea is that our fossil fuel sources are getting depleted. So after 30, 40, 70, 80 years, our new generation, the next generation will not have sufficient sources. So the best part is we have to shift to renewable sources. because the renewables is something which the nature is replenishing. They are giving on a daily basis like solar or wind on a seasonal basis. So we have to go towards energy sources because we will need energy. We are growing, our economy is growing. We will have more aspirations, we will have more appliances. So definitely we will need more energy. So from where this energy should come? It should come as far as possible from
the
renewable
sources.
sources.
Yeah.
So
Let's
that
take another
is the main. Yeah.
If government is moving towards privatization, people thinks that his job is not secure.
See, the kind of policies which are coming are again new technologies are there. So definitely there are new technologies. Once they are adopted by consumers, there will be more demand. And then when there is more demand, more service providers will come, more manufacturing appliances will be there. So actually the jobs will be created, more and more jobs will be created. And there will be new avenues. So far the avenues were only for the fossil sources. Now there will be non-fossil sources. As I mentioned, green hydrogen, green ammonia, ethanol, biomass. So these are all new technologies coming and there will be more and more jobs. And how they will increase? When there are more demand from the consumer. And this act will actually facilitate more and more demand from the consumer. So consumer is also benefited, the technology providers also provided, and at the end there will be more jobs available for all these new technologies which are upcoming. And for a country like India, which is growing, these technologies will be actually helpful for reducing the cost for the consumer also.
Is this a right way to conserve electricity, to not give the electricity to each and every corner of India? And if not, then why the government not be able to give the electricity to every villages of our country?
Yes, I don't think the government policy is not to give electricity to some part of the country or the other. I think the government's policy very clearly is to have electricity to every household, every part of the country. The question here is, should that electricity come from clean sources or should it come from fossil fuel sources? That is the basic question. And this whole bill is really aimed at increasing the share of energy coming from non-fossil fuel sources.
Mr. Premchandran, way ahead to achieve a target net zero for carbon emissions by 2070.
We are before the target because now I'm not remembering the correct percentage. Now we are not required to achieve that target, but even then we are able to cross the mark. So we are in the correct direction so as to achieve the goal by 2070. And India should be the model to the whole world because we are having the largest population in the country where energy conservation and carbon emission reduction, especially the greenhouse gases reduction, it is for our people also because wherever in the world, it's not only confined to India. If anything happens anywhere in the corner of the world, definitely it will be adversely affecting our population also. So this is a issue to be discussed globally. We should have a global perspective in the issue. So India should be marching towards, and we are able to achieve this target. I am confident that we could, and for India should be a model to all other developing countries and the developed countries so as to have this thing in mind to achieve the targets by 2070.
Absolutely, sir. So we understand that there's push for stringent norms for energy conservation, use of renewable energy and boosting the carbon credit. On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bakre, Mr. Premchandran and also Mr. Agarwal. Next week, we'll return with incisive analysis of another important bill or act. Till then, take care. Namaskar.